Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Well, Doug C. Brown has worked alongside the iconic Tony Robbins for 7 years, and through his business CEO Sales Strategies, he's helping organisations to double their revenues. So what did he learn from Tony Robbins, and what is the secret to achieving high sales volumes? Doug joins us now to reveal all. But Doug, firstly, I'd like to hear about your time as President of Sales and Training with Tony Robbins.
Hey, Carl. Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm very grateful. I worked with Tony for about 7 years. I was the President of Training and Sales for his company. And he also co-owned the company with a man named Chet Holmes. And we sold to business training programs. We focused on the 12 core concepts of actually literally doubling sales. And, we did great things there. I was able to take a sales team, and I was able to take the conversion rate from 17.8% to 43.2%. We increased sales of product lines. One went up 4,152%. We were able to restructure the front end of the sales team and double their sales rate, all deploying things that, we learned there, and then some of the things that I brought to the table. It was a great thing. I learned a lot from Tony. I learned a lot from Chet. Tony's a wonderful guy to work with, super smart. He owns numerous businesses. A lot of people know him for his, Unleash the Power Within, the live events and all those things, but he's a very, very smart businessman, doing billions of dollars.
And what did you learn from working alongside Tony Robbins?
Well, I think that the three things that I learned were that the skills of the individual are what gets a person to the next level. And then the second thing is how great they are at implementing those skills. The third thing I learned from Tony was what he called constant and never-ending improvement. He called it CANI, right? So we would apply CANI to everything. Like, if you got it working here and we could get incremental improvement, let's focus on that incremental improvement, and let's just keep focusing on that incremental improvement, with determination that's never-ending. Test it, see if it's working, get feedback, and then continue to keep that process. The last thing I think that was really important is, for entrepreneurs to especially know, is there is someone else who's probably already done what you want to do. So just find out what they are doing. They'll tell you, and model their success. And when you model their success, you will get results faster. And then as you get those results faster, you can apply that CANI, constant and never-ending improvement model, to that, and you'll move yourself down the tracks a lot faster doing it that way than just trying to do it all by yourself.
And of course, Tony Robbins has built a global brand. How did he go about doing that?
Tony's one of the most, I would say, that one of the hardest working people that I, have met in my life. He did that, quite frankly, by being in the public square, but the public square for Tony was worldwide, right? So Tony would, he was constantly traveling, but he was putting on these live events. He was, consistently in the media. He was challenging people on their current paradigms and their current beliefs on a consistent basis. So people got to know him, and then they used his products, his services. They were getting results, so people were starting to tell other people. But Tony has this unique ability to, even though it's mission first, he knows how to balance mission and knows how to balance business. In his earlier days, he admittedly was more mission-driven, and he just wanted to help people. But then he realized over time that a mission needs a business purpose to it and needs to run like a business. And so when we worked with companies like Make-A-Wish, for example, Make-A-Wish Foundation, they focus heavily on the recruitment of funds so that they can deliver their product or service. And so, Tony over time had learned that as well, on how to be a business guy and drive the mission through that business. And that's what made Tony, in part of what he is today, as far as people know who he is.
Now, you've built over 35 businesses and generated over $960 million in sales. So what is the secret to reaching sales volumes of that magnitude?
Well, consistency and doing what you say, believe it or not, is one of those things. So, we have driven, we made a lot of mistakes, I will tell you that, through the process. So you learn from those mistakes. And I think it comes back to, the teachings that we talked about with, the CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. And I learned something from Chet Holm called pig-headed discipline and determination, which is, again, you continue to keep pushing through. Once things, they're going to work, you've got to see them through. And so, we also looked at what is a win-win-win. When we do business, we say, okay, if they can win and we can win, it's good business. But if we can have them win, we win, and another party win, then what we're doing is expanding our goodwill, and that leads to better relationships all the way around. So we look for like win-win-win scenarios, especially if we're building sales teams for companies or helping them build sales teams for companies or training them on revenue growth strategies. But I think our secret sauce is really in the foundation of those things that we learned. I also learned from Russ Whitney early on that you look at a business as a business and don't take it personally because you got to run it by the numbers. So money out, money in equals something, and you make judgments off of that.
So what prompted you to set up CEO Sales Strategies?
Well, originally, CEO Sales Strategies was set up to help business to business and people selling outbound prospecting and those people needing to talk to people, because I found a hole in the market. It was more of a blue ocean strategy. And as we started going along, I realized it's like, okay, it's the economy going on now, the inflation going on, everything that's happening with people who want to retire, let's say, not even in the United States, but worldwide. In the United States, for example, people who retire, they run out of money within the first 8 to 12 years, even if they liquidate their home, their 401ks, all their retirement. So what we decided through CEO Sales Strategies is we're going to help people who don't know how to sell or people who do sell earn a six-figure income within their first 12 months. And so that means if they're making $250,000 a year, we're going to help them make $350,000 or more in that year. And that's really become the mission of the company.
So ultimately, what is the proven, repeatable system that will deliver sales revenue growth for businesses?
So the system itself is what we call 2X. And really it comes down to several parts. But the first is getting a truthful goal, right? And I know that sounds like, oh, that makes sense. But a lot of people, most people don't have truthful goals. And the Small Business Administration here in the United States has linked poor goal setting to actually poor cash flow. And so only 14%, according to Harvard University, of people actually have a truthful goal or follow a truthful goal. So if you don't know where you want to go, that's the first step. The second step is figuring out the right sales math. People don't figure in their churn, their expenses, all of the things that come along with the cost of sale. Once we get that, then it's a metrics-driven plan. We look at 11 core metrics within the process, and we follow these metrics. These metrics can be outreaches to connections, to response rates, to appointment ratios, to closed sales, and so on and so on. We're measuring these on a consistent basis using massive prospecting. So we're creating 6 multiple ways to go outbound for the massive prospecting, and then teaching the conversational conversion that's got to happen, putting that on the back end, all wrapped around follow-up, because follow-up is the glue to every single relationship. And most people are very poor at doing that. In fact, we invented a SaaS software to actually support that process, to do it as automated and personalized. And then the other core component on this, though, Carl, is the mindset that's wrapped around this. We've got to consistently condition our brain in order to allow us to consistently grow.
Sourcing high-quality leads, increasing conversions, and managing efficient follow-up can be a particular pain point. What needs to be done to address these issues?
So there are 2 fundamental issues, right? So instead of just a lead, we're looking to produce quality leads. And quality leads really for people who are selling are sales qualified or sales ready leads, meaning, hey, we've established they have a budget, we established that they have a need, we established they have the authority, we have established their timelines. We know, all of the parameters in the lead. Now, the challenge for most people on follow-up, when you statistically look at it, the average client only buys 2% of the time on the first contact. And then, so when you travel that out, 90% of sales are made on the fourth contact or more, but most people are selling, half of them never follow up one time, and only 13% follow up 4 times or more. So, if people will buy, and 62% of incoming leads, according to Marketo and HubSpot and other sources, will buy over time if we stay in touch with them, but they buy at an average of 4.85% per month as they go along, collectively of all leads. But if we're not staying in touch with them, then all we're doing is we're prepping our competition to go take the sales from us. And none of us want that. So follow-up is the core component, the core glue that holds a relationship together. And you can easily get a 5 to 15% bump in your revenue if you're just consistently following up. And if you're following up on qualified sales-ready leads, your sale is going to close much faster than if you just had a lead that you had to nurture up over time.
Does that differ based on the age profile of the prospect?
That's an excellent question and a very interesting point, because the generations communicate differently, right? So I happen to be at the tail end of the baby boomers. We love to talk to people, right? I have my daughters who are in their 20s, and, some of their friends are like, you can't call me until you text me first. So multimodality follow-up is very important in understanding the dominant way that person wants to be followed up with, or the 1 or 2 dominant ways they want to be followed up with. And that's an easy solution, because you just ask that. Hey, in the follow-up communications that we're getting, do you prefer a certain mode or modes of communication? And then you just mark that down. And as you mark that down, then you follow up in those capacity. It doesn't mean that you can't make a phone call to somebody who says, I prefer text or I prefer email. As you build a relationship, those walls start to come down. A lot of times people are trying to protect themselves and protect their time. But we all, with one of our good friends or someone we really care about, we all want to spend some time and quality time, whether that's on the phone or person to person or whatever. It's just sometimes the relationship takes a little bit longer, but most people are impatient. They're trying to make a sale versus building a relationship, and that's where the challenge comes in.
Of course, objections can often be a frustrating element of the sales process, but when it comes to how to handle objections, I'd like to get your insights into that. Should they be handled before they come up, when they come up, later, or maybe not at all?
All of the above. So I wrote a whole book on this called Win-Win Selling, right? So unlocking the power of profitability by resolving objections. And objections are nothing more than an emotion that's being expressed, but it's a fear. We don't want to crush them. People teach, how do you overcome objections? How do you crush objections? Objections are fear. Think about it. If we're crushing fear or trying to overcome fear, all we're going to do is create more fear. But the challenge when we create fear of overcoming them versus resolving them, which means helping them cross the bridge of fear into faith or buying confidence. When we're trying to crush these things, we're driving more fear. And unfortunately, they're anchoring that new fear not to the product or service, but the person actually creating the new fear within them. And now we've got more objections that we didn't want in the first place.
How has technology impacted the sales process over the past decade?
Oh, gosh, technology. I'm old enough to know when dial-up was around. And I remember when DSL came in, they called it digital subscriber line. It was our first, real online digital circuit. And I would tell people, hey, this is going to change sales forever. And people were saying to me, you're crazy. What do you mean it's going to change sales forever? And I said, think about this for a second. They rely on us as sales channels for the expertise today. When you go into a corporate environment back then, they relied on the salesperson to give them the expert advice that they were looking for, a trusted advisor. But now, with the advent of the internet back then, they can find the information that they would normally come from us, right? So now, just fast forward now, man, you've got AI, you've got all these new technologies. So the information, exchange now, most people know more about what they're looking for before they even talk to a sales channel. And so it has switched the buying criteria from us having to be just the trusted advisor and us holding all of the information to now us having to play far more win-win, because now we don't have information and they have disinformation. So in fact, it becomes more of a peer-to-peer selling process than it ever has been in the past.
Apart from LinkedIn, are there any emerging channels or platforms that you think businesses should be looking at in order to reach new customers?
Yes, direct mail. Now, this isn't an emerging technology, but people don't use direct mail enough now. I mean, if you think about it, how much mail do you usually get? So what I'm talking about with direct mail is more in what we would call lumpy mail or packages that people are actually going to open, right? Because it's 100% connection rate with direct mail. And so if you do this right and you're entertaining people through direct mail, then what you'll do is you don't need to send so many pieces out. You can target this in, let's say we're looking at 200 really high-profile targets for our company. If we use direct mail, we're going to get their response. And if we're using this appropriately, what we can do is between that and other types of contact, that will increase. We traditionally get about a 20% close rate off of our direct mail pieces. So again, send 200 pieces out targeted, you're getting 40 clients a year. Now, these aren't going to be low-end clients. They're going to be the mid and upper-end clients, but it works really great. So I think direct mail is one of the underused things. And I'm going to say, again, old school, cold calling now, if you know how to do it, is more effective than it used to be.
Finally, Doug, what are your thoughts on live selling or video selling through platforms like TikTok and others?
It has its place. It just depends on what type of business you have. And so, each platform has its strengths, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or, LinkedIn or others. So, we actually get quite a response to the training process on our Instagram. And when I first looked at Instagram, I thought that, when I was first looking, I was like, man, why would I go on Instagram? Mostly the kids are there, and that wasn't our market. That's how I looked at it. And I'm older, but that was my ignorance, right? So Instagram actually works really well for us, and we've built up a solid following of almost 1.1 million followers on Instagram over time. So it depends. It's just, again, who are you selling to? What is the right fit buyer? Where do they hang out? Whether it's on social media or not on social media. But if we're going to use social media like TikTok, or we're going to use, any program like that, it has to be matched to the right ideal fit buyer. And that's where I see people make mistakes, Carl, all the time. They're trying to go and they're trying to find non-business contacts, say, in LinkedIn.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Doug C. Brown, the owner of CEO Sales Strategies. And I would like to thank Doug for sharing his knowledge with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.